What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode number 6 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show podcast. This is Jared and Ian back again, ready to talk some Ohio sports with you guys. E, how you doing this week, brother?
Living the dream, bud. How are you doing?
Doing well. Ready to get into it, ready to talk some Ohio sports with you guys. For those of you who may be new to the show, we usually start each episode off with our best and worst of this past week of sports. E, let's hear your best and worst, brother.
My best of this week is the deal that came through on Wednesday. Browns and the Eagles swapping picks in the 2016 NFL Draft. The Browns sending their number 2 pick overall to the Eagles and a 4th-round pick for the number 8 pick overall, a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round pick in this year's draft, and next year's 1st-round pick and 2018 2nd-round pick from the Eagles. Love this move for the Browns. They got a bunch of analytical guys in that front office. You know, they're rebuilding, new head coach, everything like that. They're trying to stockpile picks and bring in new young guys. I think it's a great move for the team. My worst of the week, undoubtedly, is the no-hitter that Jake Arrieta completed against the Reds on Thursday en route to a 16-0 victory. Nothing like kicking us while we're down. The Reds were able to draw 4 walks, though, so no perfect game for him. Arrieta was just phenomenal, and it makes me sick because I absolutely despise everything about the Chicago Cubs. But that's my best and worst of the week.
Very nice. My best and worst. The best in general is just the NHL playoffs being back. For those of you who may not know, I'm a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. My Pens moved on to the 2nd round. They will face the Washington Capitals, the top seed in the East. It's going to be a good matchup. The NHL playoffs have been fantastic. I don't know if you watched any of it, Ian, but the last night's Blackhawks Blues game, Game 7, was amazing. I mean, up and down roller coaster ride. Puck hit off both posts and bounced out for the Blackhawks, and the Blues ended up advancing and knocking out the former champs. NHL playoffs have been amazing. If you haven't been watching it, I suggest that you sit down, take the time, and watch a few games. It's been awesome. My worst has to be Prince dying at age 57 last Thursday. Terrible loss for the world of music, in the world in general. He was a great humanitarian. He's one of the best musicians ever. I was a huge Prince fan. Absolutely one of the greatest guitar players of all time. There's no question. Not many people did it like Prince, and there will never be another Prince. He was original. Everything about him. I mean, he made you want to dance, even if you didn't like dancing. Everything about Prince was fantastic. I mean, you saw how shocking of a loss that was for the world. I mean, even in the sports world, it stopped. The whole world pretty much stopped when it was announced that Prince had died. And the Reds did a pretty awesome tribute to him. Unfortunately, that was the same day that Arrieta threw his no-hitter against the Reds, so it kind of kicked us while we were down. But Prince dying at age 57 just lost him too soon. Another musician. This has been a terrible year for great musicians, and unfortunately, Prince was the next to go. But his music will forever live on, and unfortunately, we would get sued, or else we would play some Little Red Corvette right now. But rest in peace, Prince. Thanks for the tunes. Moving on, our top 5. This is a segment we do. It coincides with something that's going on in pop culture or news today. And recently it was announced this week that Mike Tirico of ESPN is leaving ESPN for NBC. Pretty big, shocking move. Mike Tirico does Monday Night Football. Really shocking when this came out. So in honor of Mike Tirico leaving ESPN, we're going to do our top 5 favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show hosts. So Ian, without further ado, let's hear number 5 on your list of favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show hosts.
Number 5 for me is Colin Cowherd. Dude loves controversy. He knows how to strike people's chords, and he gets a lot of feedback from fans. Positive and negative. I used to not care much for this guy. I always listened to him midday when he was on ESPN. But the thing is, man, even if you don't like him, you always tuned in the next day to see what he was talking about. So obviously, he's doing his job. He's moved on since from ESPN. He's on Fox Sports now, but still doing a show with the Herd. And number 5 for me is Colin Cowherd.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of any of the ESPN guys. Usually when they end up leaving ESPN, they're great, and that's the case with Colin Cowherd. I mean, I didn't like him at ESPN, and when he left, he's been awesome. The Herd's a great show. So I like Cowherd. He's not in my top 5. Number 5 for me is Al Michaels. Al Michaels is legendary. He called the Miracle on Ice call, one of the greatest calls in the history of sports. A huge hockey guy, by the way. Al Michaels is a diehard LA Kings fan. He's been a season ticket holder since the franchise was founded. He actually got to spend a day with the Stanley Cup when they won it all a few years back. So Al Michaels is great. Sunday Night Football with Chris Collinsworth. Al Michaels is great. And it's rumored that Al Michaels actually eats his dinner, a steak dinner, because that's all he eats, during the game. That's pretty awesome. If that's true, that's just legendary shit. So Al Michaels, number 5 for me. Moving on, number 4 on our list of top 5 favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show host. Ian, let's hear number 4 for you.
He started on SportsCenter and then he left, and he took the NFL Network by storm. Number 4 for me is Rich Eisen. Love Rich. I've loved him since ESPN on SportsCenter with Stuart Scott. They were my favorite pair on SportsCenter, but Rich Eisen's done a lot of big things for NFL Network, and he started his own show. It's great. I'm always listening to that during the day. Number 4 for me, Rich Eisen.
Love me some Rich. He'll show up later for me. Number 4 on my list is Bill Raftery, legendary CBS announcer. Onions! Raftery, get the puppy set. That's a terrible Raftery, but he's awesome. One of the best come tournament time, one of the best in college basketball. I love Bill Raftery. He has the legendary call of send it in, Jerome. That is one of the best sports calls ever when he broke the backboard for Pitt. Bill Raftery comes in at number 4 for me. That is a terrible Raftery. So for everyone who's listening, I'm sorry. I apologize. But we're moving on. Number 3 on our list of top 5 favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show hosts. Number 3, let's hear it.
Number 3 for me is while we're doing the list. Mike Tirico comes in at that 3rd spot for me. Tirico is just, he's awesome. You can plug him in to do any sport, and I think he'd do just fine. I think I'd watch table tennis or cricket if he was calling it. He's done excellent with Monday Night Football at ESPN. He does NBA. Love listening to him call basketball games. He was great with college football. And then when they made the transition to Monday Night Football, they dropped him from the college. But, college football is where he got his big break with ESPN. But, I think he's going to do big things with NBC. But number 3 for me is Mike Tirico.
Love Tirico. Love Monday Night Football. He makes John Gruden bearable. So it's going to be a sad day when he leaves Monday Night Football. Number 3 for me, as you mentioned earlier, Mr. Rich Eisen, phenomenal. One of my favorite old ESPN guys. I listen to the Rich Eisen show every single day. I've actually been a caller on that show multiple times, and Rich is just an awesome dude. Every year at the NFL Combine, when he does Run Rich Run, when he does it for St. Jude's Hospital in the suit, runs the 40-yard dash. Rich Eisen's awesome. One of the best football guys out there. He's hilarious. He's a current guest all the time on, I think, arguably our favorite sports broadcasters show, which we'll get into later. But Rich Eisen's phenomenal, man. I love the guy. Love his show. The Rich Eisen show is amazing. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. Rich Eisen comes in at number 3 for me on my list of top 5 favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show host. Moving on, let's hear number 2, E, on your list.
Number 2 for me, Mr. Ohio, Dan Patrick. Love Dan. Listen to him every day. Enjoyed him when he was with ESPN and did SportsCenter. Love him even more now that he's got his own show. You're actually the one that turned me on to his show and started listening to it every day once I found it on the dial. And that's what I go to work with. That's what I go to school with, and never missed DP during the week. So Dan Patrick comes in at number 2 for me.
Love Dan. He'll come in later at my list. But number 2 for me on my list of top 5 favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show host is Mr. Doc Emmerich. Doc Emmerich is the best play-by-play announcer in sports. If you don't know who he is, he works for NBC Sports. He does all the hockey games, pretty much all the big games. He is amazing. Doc Emmerich, to be able to announce sports is one thing, but to be able to announce hockey, how fast-paced it is, Doc is the best. And if you watch any hockey, you know his legendary voice. He didn't play this sport. He just grew up a huge fan, got into it, and he's one of the best voices. He comes up with it. He has his own terminology. You'll frequently hear him use the words like waffle boarded, sashayed. I know he didn't make that word up, but he uses that word in NHL. he's awesome. Doc Emmerich is great. If you do yourself a favor, if you're just getting into hockey, sit down and watch a game where Doc Emmerich is announcing it and tell me that he's not the best in the business. Number 2 for me on my list of top 5 favorite sports broadcasters / sports talk show hosts is Mr. Doc Emmerich. Moving on, our favorite sports broadcaster / sports talk show host, Ian, who's number 1 on your list?
Number 1 for me is the Duke Blue Devil, Jay Billis. I love listening to him call college basketball on ESPN. I don't think there's anyone better in the business than Jay Billis. He's very, he doesn't go with Duke every game. That's a rarity with ESPN. A lot of those guys always pick Duke, no matter how good or how bad they are. Billis gives it to you straight. If he thinks that somebody coming in against Duke that's better than them, he'll lay it out straight for you. It used to be Dickie V calling all those big games, but now it's usually Jay Billis and Dan Schulman with the call. And Billis just does a phenomenal job. Nobody analyzes the game of basketball, college basketball, better than Billis. He played it. He knows what to look for, and he just does a phenomenal job. Number 1 on my list is Jay Billis.
I absolutely love Jay Billis. Hate Duke, but Billis is the best in the business at what he does. And he regularly tweets out Jeezy quotes, so it's pretty awesome. Jay Billis is great. Number 1 on my list, you mentioned him earlier, Mr. Dan Patrick, Dayton, Ohio's own. Dan Patrick is the best in the business, bar none. His radio show is tops. There's no one that does anything better than Dan, whether it's Football Night in America, his voice on Sports Jeopardy. Everything about Dan is fantastic. He's my favorite talk show host. He's one of the people that has influenced me to do this, to do podcasts and things like that. And he's been my favorite for a long time. And Dan Patrick frequently has talked about Carlisle, the town that we're from, Ian, a lot on his show because he went to Mason, Ohio, and they played Carlisle a lot in basketball. Dan's the man. He's awesome. Check out his show every single morning, 9 to 12 p.m. on NBC Sports Network. He is the absolute best. So moving on, that's our top 5 list. Let's move on. Let's talk a little Reds baseball. Things aren't going so hot for the Reds right now. Since we last talked to you guys last week when we dropped our podcast on Wednesday, the Reds won 2 out of 3 against the Rockies at home, which was pretty good. They could have won all 3, but that was pretty good by them. Then they welcomed the red-hot Chicago Cubs to town. Like we mentioned earlier, Jake Arrieta threw a no-hitter. The Reds gave up 16 runs in that game. They lost 3 out of 4 to the Cubs, which was terrible. Cool thing, though, a little side note from the Jake Arrieta no-hitter, the Reds are actually going to give him the pitching rubber and home plate from that game. So that's a pretty cool little gesture from the Reds. But after the Cubs left town, they're now on the road facing the New York Mets, the defending NL champion Mets, and they lost their first 2 games. They should have won Tuesday night's game, but again, the bullpen pitching staff struck, and the Reds ended up losing that game. They got one more with the Mets, and hopefully they can grab a win. They've only won 1 road game this season. Pretty fucking terrible from the Reds. Pretty terrible on the road. The funny thing with the Reds is, though, Ian, they've been in almost every game, but their pitching staff blows up at some point in the game, and they end up losing late in the game. It's usually 7th, 8th, 9th inning. They're losing games, but they're in the game up until then. Their guys are hitting the ball pretty well. Brandon Phillips got beamed on the hand by Noah Syndergaard. And you couldn't imagine what that felt like on the ring finger, I think, actually. And thankfully nothing's broken, but he's going to be out for a few games. Zach Cozart is absolutely knocking the cover off the ball right now. That kid is playing great baseball. He's seeing the ball well. And, same old story. Our pitching staff looks like shit. So what are your thoughts on the Reds right now, E?
Like you mentioned, they've pretty much been in every game. They've been in a lot of these games that they've lost, aside from that 16-0 drubbing from Arrieta. But, I think that does more harm than good for our fan base because a lot of these fans watch the Reds compete in these games and then blow it at the end. And I think a lot of fans think, well, we're only a couple players away. If we just get a solid bullpen, that's not it. It's, from top to bottom, this organization needed a rebuild. That's what we're going through. Starting pitching, it's been kind of shaky. We need guys to be able to give us innings so we don't have to rely on the bullpen so much. You got guys like Hoover, just don't even want to get into it. Ollendorf, Streaky,
Hoover,
these guys.
JJ Hoover should be put on a rocket ship and blasted into the sun. That guy is fucking worthless.
I won't deny that. You got a couple guys that they're bringing up from AAA that no one's ever heard of. That Ramirez cat that blew it last night on Monday. It's disheartening. We're in it for the long haul, but I think we kind of figured we would lose these games. We would lose a lot of games this year, but I don't think we thought that we would lose them so close and in a heartbreaking manner. I mean, we're already set up for heartbreak when you and I both predicted they're going to lose triple-digit games. But don't do this to us all season. Don't keep us in the game and then let the bullpen blow it at the end. Because it really goes back to like those Francisco Cordero days, the David Weathers days, where we had a bad team, but we were always in it till the late innings, and then the bullpen would just implode. So that's where we're at. Like you said, we got some bright spots. We got Cozart.
Finnegan has looked great. Stevenson looked good in his games that he's pitched. I feel bad for Finnegan, man. He's pitching a lot of good games. He's not getting results. It's just it's terrible, man. The Reds are killing their starting pitchers. Iglesias looks okay. Alfredo Simon looks like dog shit. He looks terrible. I've not seen a starting pitcher for the Reds look that bad in a long time. Alfredo Simon, he's going like 2.5 innings, like giving up 8 runs. He looks terrible.
Unfortunately, I think that 2014 season from him was a flash in the pan. I think that's about, we got excited when we brought him back because we're like, well, look what Big Pasta did for us in 14. I think it was a flash in the pan. I don't think he'll ever do anything like that again. Like you mentioned, Finnegan's put together a few nice outings, and, the rest of the team can't nail it down for him, especially the bullpen. Suarez still hitting the ball pretty good. Vado's starting to come around. Duvall's a little bit in of a kind of a stretch where he's not seeing the ball very well. Shebler's still doing well. Bruce has been hot. He's on the paternity list, so he'll be back in a couple days. Hamilton's actually starting to hit the ball a little bit better too, so the offense is getting there. But, number one, it's the pitching, man. It's terrible.
It's awful. A lot of people, like we said, are going to blame Brian Price, and he may deserve a little bit of it, but look at that bullpen. He has nobody out there. It's a dumpster fire, man. It's only going to get worse. But hopefully, I agree with you, though. I don't want the Reds to keep us in games all year and then go the whole 9 yards and trip. Losing games in the 7th, 8th inning is terrible. I'd rather them be in games, I guess, but losing those heartbreakers is awful, man. And they've been in almost every game. They played the Cubs well. They lost some bad games to the Cubs, but the Cubs are almost triple – little over 2.5% or 2.5%, sorry, almost double the Reds' payroll. Finally got that out. But the Cubs are dominant, and they're the favorite to win the World Series for a reason. The Reds just, I don't know. It sucks losing these games late, but whatever. Reds fans, keep your heads up, keep your chins up, and hopefully we can continue to get better and see these guys evolve and see these guys get better. But moving on. Let's talk a little NBA playoffs, a little basketball. Cleveland Cavs swept the Detroit Pistons in round 1, led by Kyrie Irving, who averaged 27.5 points per game in round 1. LeBron averaged 22.8 points per game, and Kevin Love averaged 18.8 points per game. The Cavs' big three, they look fantastic in round 1. The Cavs will now take on the winner of the series between Atlanta and the Boston Celtics. Series is currently tied at 2, but they are playing tonight on Tuesday. Who do you think would be the best matchup for the Cavs in round 2, E?
Against the Cavs, if I'm Cleveland, I'm wanting Atlanta. I don't want anything to do with Boston. Boston's got about 7 guys that can go for 16 to 18 points a night, and they usually do that. And Isaiah Thomas is slowly becoming a superstar in the NBA, and I think he's too quick for Kyrie to guard. So if I'm the Cavaliers, I want nothing to do with the Celtics. You and I both said it. We think the Celtics are a scary matchup for the Cavaliers. Jay Crowder, he's became a force the last couple years. Sneaky good on defense.
I'm a Mavericks fan. We drafted Jay Crowder and we traded him for fucking Rajon Rondo. So yeah, I trust me. I love Jay Crowder. And by the way, update on the Hawks Celtics game. The Hawks won Game 5, 110-83. So the Hawks now lead the series 3-2. So I agree with you. I would rather play the Hawks. I don't think they want any part of the. I mean, they'll beat whoever they play. It doesn't matter. The Cavs are going to beat the Celtics or they'll beat the Hawks. But I think the Hawks are a better matchup for them. I think they, they're not. Isaiah Thomas is a tricky matchup for Kyrie. They got some pretty good guys down low, and the Celtics are just a gritty team. I think the Cavs will. They're not going to sweep this next series. I think it'll be 5 games, maybe 6, but they're still going to win it, especially if Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love are playing that well. Like I said, LeBron's going to get his. The key to the Cavs winning a championship this year is Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Those two are playing lights out right now. So Kevin Love averaged a triple-double. I think he had averaged 12 rebounds in round ones, or double-double. Sorry, I think Kevin Love averaged 12 rebounds in the first round. So that's old school Kevin Love right there, man. That's exactly what the Cavs need, and hopefully they can get one for Cleveland, man. I really do hope that. But let's move on. Let's talk a little football. Your Browns, like you mentioned, for those of you who may have missed it in Ian's best of the week, his Cleveland Browns last Wednesday were involved in a blockbuster trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. The Browns sent their number 2 overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft, as well as their 4th round pick in the 2017 draft, in exchange for Philadelphia's 8th overall pick, a 3rd round pick, pick number 77, and a 4th round pick, pick number 100 in this year's upcoming draft. The Browns will also receive a 1st round pick in 2017 and a 2nd round pick in 2018. So to go a little deeper into that trade, Ian, home run for the Browns. As a Bengals fan, absolute fucking home run for the Browns. And we sat here in episode 5 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show and said that was a rumor that may happen. It actually happened the next day when the podcast released. But we said that would be a great trade. We would take that right away. And you sat there and said you hope that happens. So go a little deeper on that, E. What do you think, man?
No doubt it's a home run. With bringing in a new coaching staff, bringing in Hugh, bringing in these analytical guys into the front office, just a complete overhaul with personnel. Our number 1 priority is the NFL draft. We said that as we exited last season and made these moves with personnel, that our number 1 priority is the NFL draft. And how do you make sure that your number 1 priority is guarded? You get as many draft picks as possible. So the Browns are doing that. They're setting themselves up for this draft. They're setting themselves up for the next 2 drafts with extra picks. Anytime you can go 2 for 1 with 1st round picks, doesn't matter if it's in the same season or future season, you do it. And, I think the Browns knocked it out of the park with this. They'll add guys. They'll add guys through free agency after the draft to fill holes where they need to. But, the number 1 priority is to draft these guys that they're looking at, analyze what they've got to offer, and, build a good young roster. We're not going to compete for a couple seasons. I'm hoping by that 3rd season, Hugh can put something together with these guys. With the personnel, looking at these young players and developing them. But that's still to come. That's still a long ways to go. But as far as right now goes, with this trade, what it means for the Browns, city of Cleveland should be excited because they absolutely, knocked this one out of the park with this deal with the Eagles.
Yeah, man, it was a home run. Outsider looking in as a Bengals fan, I posted on Facebook that I thought it was a home run, and I saw a lot of Browns fans commenting on our Facebook page. They were kind of upset by it. So it kind of took me aback. I was like, man, you guys can't win. If you guys take a quarterback, it's, we took another quarterback to ruin. If you take a corner or a defensive player, who the hell is this guy? Why are we drafting a defensive player so high? You can't win. So I think it was a home run trade by the Browns. And Sashi Brown came out and said, or Sashi Brown, the front office, was he your vice president or something like that?
Yeah, VP of player operations.
Okay. Sashi Brown came out and said that they're not opposed to trading down again. So I wouldn't put that past them, man. Stockpile draft picks, build yourself to the draft. Like we said, the Bengals did it, and look where they're at. So, don't rule anything out, Browns fans. I personally think it was a great trade. Another piece of news in Cleveland, like I said, until he is picked up by another team, we are always going to talk about him. Former quarterback, asshole Johnny Manziel, was indicted by a grand jury on Tuesday in the alleged attack on his ex-girlfriend. Manziel's ex-girlfriend claims that he hit her and threatened to kill her in late January. We actually talked about it on our show. His ex-girlfriend said in court documents that Manziel struck her so hard that she temporarily lost hearing in one ear, and the indictment accuses him of forcing her into a vehicle and against a vehicle dashboard, end quote. Manziel faces a charge of misdemeanor assault related to family violence, which carries up to 1 year in jail and a $4,000 fine. This fucking idiot, still in the news. He cannot get himself out. Now, I know this is old stuff that's just, coming to light with the jury and everything. This guy is the biggest dumbass in sports. And, people who say they're going to save Manziel, he is so Ryan Leaf-ish, it's unreal. Ryan Leaf came out of college, huge potential. He battled drug addictions and everything. Ryan Leaf went to jail. It took him going to jail to learn, hey, I can be a better person. Ryan Leaf was on the Dan Patrick Show and actually said he reached out to Johnny Manziel and said, hey, I'm here to help you whenever you need me. But he also said, I was the same way. People reached out to me. And I think he said Todd Marinovich reached out to him, the old USC quarterback who was a drug addict as well. He said, it takes you'll hear that, and you'll hear that people are willing to help you, but it takes you, going to jail and losing everything. Ryan Leaf was a great quarterback. People Indianapolis thought about taking him over Peyton Manning. Ultimately they chose right, but pretty crazy, man. Johnny Manziel is not a slouch. He's a great quarterback, or he's a great football player. I don't know if he's a great NFL quarterback, but one of the best college quarterbacks, Heisman Trophy winner. He could have won it 2 years. Terrible, terrible to see him go down this path. I hope he gets himself right, but the more he stays in the news, he's just an asshole in my eyes, especially anytime a man puts their hands on a woman negatively. Fuck that guy. Seriously. So Manziel, for me, I hope he gets the help he needs, but the guy's an asshole, man.
No, I completely agree. And you talked about it last week, man. His agent dropping him. Same agent. Not just
his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, who doesn't drop anyone. He's never dropped a client ever. He has Greg Hardy on his fucking payroll.
That's what I was gonna say. For a guy that represents Greg Hardy and keeps Greg Hardy on the payroll, and he turns around and he drops Johnny Manziel. That just tells you how big of a piece of shit you are. I mean, he's an eyesore wherever he goes. The guy's got to get help. He's not going to be in the NFL until he gets help. Someone needs to, there have been people that's reached out to him, so I can't say people need to reach out to him. This is all on Johnny. He's got to wake up one morning. He's got to look at himself in the mirror and be like, I need to change. I need to do something. And it's not just about getting back into the game of football. It's about saving your life. How many times do we see guys go down this road and then, we read about them in the paper where they died? It's sad. It's terrible. He's got to fix the man that he sees every day when he looks into the mirror before he gets back on that football field. It's ridiculous. He's a shit show.
Absolutely. And shout out to our boy Skip Bayless for saying that Houston would regret not taking Johnny Manziel in the draft. They're really regretting it now, Skip. Moving on, let's talk about my Cincinnati Bengals. Not much news with the Bengals. Today, on Tuesday, they did release linebacker A.J. Hawk. The veteran linebacker only had 25 tackles and 1 sack while with the Bengals, and most of those tackles came on special teams. A.J. Hawk only took 26% of defensive snaps last season and only 17% of special team snaps. Hawk's going to be 32 years old, veteran. He was due $1.4 million next season. So smart move by the Bengals releasing him, in my opinion. It helps the Bengals avoid the hit to their salary cap with dead money. And they're going to have a lot of players that they got to sign. And obviously the kids that they draft, they got to get signed as well. I saw some people that were kind of upset that the Bengals dropped Hawk. They signed Carlos Dansby. He's their veteran linebacker now. So moving on from Hawk, I don't know if he's going to hang it up and call it quits, but I loved AJ Hawk at Ohio State, but he didn't really contribute anything to the Bengals, so whatever. But yeah, that's really all that's going on with the Bengals. The big news, though, we are finally in NFL draft week after the long anticipated wait. We are finally here. I am a huge draft fan. I will sit and literally analyze every single pick. So speaking of analyzing picks, me and Ian are going to go through our mock draft, me for the Bengals, Ian for the Browns, and give you who we think each team will take or who we want them to take round by round, all 7 rounds. So, E, do you want to start or do you want me to?
I'll start. That's fine.
All right, let's go ahead. Round 1, your Cleveland Browns. Who are they taking, brother? And by the way, we're not going to do any trades. If you think that they may trade, you can say, hey, they may trade here, but we're going to stick to the picks that they actually have now. So go ahead, round 1, E.
I'm going to stick with the picks all the way through. I think they are going to make picks, or I think they are going to make trades all the way through the draft. So this is all going to get jumbled up. So none of my picks will probably come true. But as of today, what I think will happen, I think that Goff is going to go number 1 overall. Wentz will go 2. I think the Chargers are going to take Jalen Ramsey. Cowboys will take Zeke Elliott. Jaguars will go Miles Jack. Ravens will go Ronnie Stanley. 49ers go Bosa. And I think all of a sudden, offensive tackle Laramie Tunsil will fall to number 8. The Cleveland Browns will take the Ole Miss left tackle. He's the cleanest offensive lineman in the draft. Some of the quickest feet in the draft as well.
Yeah, that would be huge. I'm actually going to let's do it round by round. Let's just do it that way. It's much easier. That would be a huge pick for you guys. If he falls, I mean, everyone had him going 1 overall to the Titans. So if he falls to you guys, what a steal. My gosh. Okay, so the Bengals are picking 24th in round number 1. The tricky thing with that is picks 20 through 24 are most likely going to be wide receivers. So a lot of I'm real high on Josh Doxson, but I think the Vikings are going to take him the pick before us at 23. So I think Corey Coleman from Baylor. I think the Bengals will take him. Corey Coleman, wide receiver out of Baylor. Kid is super fast. My gosh, he is super fast. He's got great hands. He's so fast that he blows by his coverage and he demands a lot of safety help over the top. He can jump out of the gym. And I think he would be a fantastic complement to A.J. Green. So if he falls to us, he's been compared to John Brown from the Cardinals a lot. So that is a huge comparison. John Brown's got a hell of a future in the NFL. So if he can at least match that, holy shit, the Bengals are going to be working. So I like Josh Doxson there. If he's there, I think the Bengals will jump all over him. But I think Corey Coleman will fall to us, and I would be ecstatic with that pick. So let's move on to round number 2, E. Go ahead. Who do you think the Browns are going to take?
With the first selection in the second round, 32 overall, the Cleveland Browns will select the cornerback out of Miami, Artie Burns. Burns is a track star. He's a 2-sport star. Track. He's a hurdler at the U. Done well. Super athletic. He baits quarterbacks into bad throws. He's a hard hitter. That's what he's known for. Keeps up with a lot of the top wide receivers in the country. I would love to see the Browns take him. I think he would help out that secondary. They need to help out Joe Hayden a lot, lining up opposite of him on the other side of the field. So with the 32 pick, I'm going to go with Artie Burns from Miami.
Very nice. All right, the Bengals pick 55th in the second round. Now, the Bengals have a couple needs coming into the draft. They have wide receiver, which they obviously address with their first pick their pick number 24 in the first round. They need a defensive tackle, and they also need a linebacker. They could use the center as well. But this pick doesn't really fill a need, but the Bengals never pass on great defensive ends. I think they take Emmanuel Ogbah defensive end out of Oklahoma State with pick number 55 in the second round. Like I said, they don't really need a D in, but they are very high on Ogbah. I know for a fact that they've met with him multiple times. They really like his game. He would be a steal if he falls to the Bengals at this point in the draft. He is very powerful. Tight ends cannot take him one-on-one. He's very good against linemen as well. He's got great hands and speed for how big he is, and he absorbs contact well. So the Bengals need – Marcus Hunt hasn't worked out for the Bengals. Carlos Dunlap wasn't a fucking monster last year, but Michael Johnson didn't really play as well as the Bengals, I thought, hoped, or as well as I hoped. But I think the Bengals will take Emmanuel Ogbah if he's on the board there, and I think it would be a great pick for him. So moving on. Round 3, who the Browns taking?
We got 2 picks in the third round, number 65 overall. This is a guy that I think will fall to us here. It may be a little high, but I want to go ahead and take him off the board just because of his sheer potential. Outside linebacker from Notre Dame, Jalen Smith. He got hurt in that Fiesta Bowl loss to Ohio State, tore his ACL and MCL. Likely a long road ahead of him for rehab. Might miss the entire season for the NFL next year, but this guy's got a ton of potential. 225 tackles over the last 2 years. Truly a hybrid player. He fits all 3-4 and 4-3 schemes. He's super athletic, super fast. He can drop back into coverage. He can hang with the best of them. The Browns have another pick in the third round. It's 77th overall. This is where they take their first wide receiver out of Ohio State, former quarterback Braxton Miller.
Be a good pick for him if they take Braxton. I mean, hometown kid going to a Ohio team, so I'm sure the fans in Cleveland would like that, and his upside is through the roof. So the Bengals picked number 87 overall in the third round. I got them filling a need at defensive tackle. They're going to take Javon Hargrave out of South Carolina State. If you haven't seen this kid play, he's a pretty big specimen. He's got great quickness and power for how big he is. He has good hands. He flashes great playmaking ability. The thing with the Bengals is Domata Peko is getting old, and he struggled last year. They need to fill that hole up in the middle. And imagine, Bengals fans, if we had another solid defensive tackle in the middle with Geno Atkins, and teams have to decide who they want to double team. Helps our defensive ends out. It helps our linebackers out. And if Geno Atkins isn't getting double teamed, that motherfucker is in the backfield all day because you cannot take him one-on-one. So I like the pick there. I think the Bengals, if he's on the board, they'll take Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle out of South Carolina State. Moving on, round number 4. Ian, who are your Browns taking?
Fourth round, we got 3 draft picks. Number 99 overall, I think we're going to take defensive end out of Penn State, Carl Nassib. Then we go back-to-back picks. We got a pick in at number 100. I think we're going to go offensive line there and take the guard out of Washington State, Joe Dahl. Would love to see that big kid. He'd help out that right side of the line, especially if we get Tunzel too. Move Tunzel to right tackle until Joe's ready to give up left tackle, and then you bring in Dahl to play right guard. That'd be huge. And then pick 138 in the fourth round. I think we go wide receiver again, take Rashard Higgins out of Colorado State.
Very nice. Round 4, the Bengals pick at 122. I have them taking Cyrus Jones, cornerback out of Alabama. Kid's pretty good on tape. He's faced SEC talent, obviously, so that's huge. He's a little undersized, but he is good in coverage. He's got good hands. He's a hard hitter. I like Cyrus Jones, and I think they're going to need to put some depth. They got a lot of guys in the secondary that are getting old. The Bengals are going to have to start putting depth at cornerback. So defensive back's always a solid pick as long as it's not in the earlier rounds. I like Cyrus Jones out of Alabama with the Bengals' fourth-round pick. So moving on, round 5, E, who do you got your Browns taking?
Round 5, we've got 3 more picks in this round. Pick number 141, stop the press. The Browns will take a quarterback with this pick. Out of USC, my boy Cody Kessler at 141. At 172, I think we go back to wide receiver again. Out of South Carolina, Pharaoh Cooper. And then at 173, I think we take the center out of Duke, Matt Skura. All 3 decent picks, I think, for the 5th round for the Browns.
Yeah, you guys are you guys got so many picks. I forgot about that. Round 5 for the Bengals, they pick at number 161. I've been high on this kid in my mock drafts. I had him going to the Bengals. Graham Glasgow, center out of Michigan. The Bengals had one of the best lines in football last year. Their one weakness was Russell Bodine. Center gets pushed back way too much. He had a lot of bad snaps to Andy. And the Bengals need to address that. Bodine has not evolved as the Bengals center, in my opinion. So I would address that with this freak of nature, Graham Glasgow. He is a monster. He's huge. He's very strong. He keeps his hands inside the defender, which is good. He's faced a lot of great Big Ten talent, and that's something they do look at nowadays, who they face in college. So Graham Glasgow, if he's there for the Bengals, great pick in the 5th round, especially. Moving on, round 6. E, who do you have your Browns taking?
Well, we've only got one pick in the 6th round, so I'll make this quick. I'm going cornerback out of Mississippi State, Tavies Calhoun. Solid SEC corner, just adding depth to that defensive backfield that is now depleted.
Very nice. Round 6, the Bengals pick number 199. I got them addressing, filling more holes in their wide receiver spot. I had them taking Kearis Garrett out of Tulsa, wide receiver. The kid has gotten a lot of comparison to Randy Moss. If you watch him on tape, he blows by guys. He's a downfield guy. He gets past defenders. He's huge. He's got great hands. The one problem is his work ethic. They talk a lot about that. He gets comparisons to Randy Moss. However, obviously they say he's got a long way to go. He needs to sharpen his route running. But in the 6th round, I think this kid is a steal for the Bengals. So if he's there, I'd like the Bengals to take Kearis Garrett, wide receiver out of Tulsa. Final round, round 7. This is where the teams are made. Ian, who do you have the Browns taking in round 7?
7th round, pick number 223 overall. I got the Browns drafting one of the best names in the draft, linebacker out of Auburn, Casanova McKenzie.
That's a hell of a name. Hell of a name. Round 7, Bengals pick number 245. I have them taking a linebacker, Josh Forrest out of Kentucky, SEC linebacker. He had it all. He's all right. He's a little undersized. He can get better in coverage. But he had a good season last year at Kentucky, and I think it would be a steal for him. I've seen mock drafts where he goes a little bit higher than round 7, but I don't think he's going to go at least higher than round 6. If he's there at 7, I like the Bengals to take him. Josh Forrest, linebacker out of Kentucky. But that's it. That's our mock drafts for the Bengals and Browns. Cannot wait for the draft to start. I absolutely cannot wait. I love it so much. But moving on, new segment that we started in episode 5 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show podcast is our OSR Mailbag. This is where we answer questions from you, the fans of Ohio Sports Radio. So let's get into that. Question via our Twitter account at Ohio Sports Radio. We have a question from Mr. Dan Combs at Dan Combs with a Z on Twitter. He wants to know, Ian, do you think it's wise for the Browns to use all 12 picks, or should they trade some away? 12 rookies seems like a lot.
I think they are going to make more moves, like I said in the beginning of this mock draft. I think they're going to make more deals throughout the draft, but it's just going to create more picks for either this draft or future drafts. Where we're at right now with this franchise and with the new personnel, we need to get in these new players. We need to get new guys in there. We need to develop young guys. It's all about seeing what you can build through the draft with this team. Somebody from ESPN said that the Browns are a glorified expansion team. Well, expansion teams built through the draft, so that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind if the Bengals traded down. I've seen a couple mock drafts where they actually trade down their first-round pick and move down a couple spots and get more draft picks. So having draft picks is definitely a good thing. Thank you for the question, Dan. Moving on, Ricky Barker via our Facebook page, Ohio Sports Radio on Facebook. He wants to know, how many all-pro players do you guys think are in this draft?
I think there's a ton. I think this is a great year for the NFL draft. There's a lot of good players in a lot of positions. I think offensive line is loaded. I think just about anybody that gets taken in the first or second round are going to be impact players from the offensive line standpoint. There's a couple athletic linebackers in this draft. Noah Spence out of Eastern Kentucky. You got Miles Jack, who's just a freak. Reggie Ragland from Alabama. I mean, there's guys at every position.
Yeah, I agree. I think at least 7, maybe 6 or 7. I don't know, all pros. That's a big deal. So 69. That's a great number, Ricky.
69.
That's a great number. Thank you for the question, Ricky. Jake Parrish wants to know via our Facebook page, which member of the Buckeyes has the highest NFL ceiling?
My heart wants to say Zeke, but you get the toll taken when you're a running back. One hit can ruin you. I think Taylor Decker has got an enormous ceiling, and a lot of mock drafts have him going to the Colts. I think that's exactly what Andrew Luck needs there in Indianapolis, and I think if he goes to Indianapolis, he's going to flourish. I think Taylor Decker is going to be a home run pick wherever he goes.
Yeah, I'm going to say Zeke, actually. I would have said Darren Lee, but Zeke Elliott, I mean, we go back as Ohio State fans and we watch him play. Jesus, dude, the guy was unreal. And everybody's like, yeah, well, that's Urban Meyer's offense. It doesn't matter. Good running backs are good running backs, man. I mean, if he has a good line, if he goes to Dallas, holy shit, they need a running back. They were one of the best teams in the league with DeMarco Murray, and that line was fantastic. If he goes to Dallas and has that line, good Lord, Zeke is going to dominate. And I hope he does. I want to see him in the NFC. I don't want to see the Bengals have to play him. But Zeke is a monster. He's a great blocker. That's one thing that NFL teams are going to love about him. He's great out of the backfield. He can catch the ball. And the kid just has a great – he has great quickness when he gets in the open field, and he's good at making guys miss. So I'm going to say Zeke Elliott. That's a good question, Jake. Thank you, sir. Let's move on. We got a couple Reds questions. Dean Lanier wants to know via our Facebook page, how would you guys solve the Reds bullpen?
Blow it up.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm not really worried, Dean. I know it sucks. I post after every game on Facebook that I hate this pitching staff or I hate this bullpen, whichever one blows it. However, I don't know, man. It's rebuilding year. It sucks. It's hard as fans. We want our teams to win, but this team is not built to win. They're not built to win. The bullpen's terrible. One thing I would do, Dean, like I said earlier, I'd put J.J. Hoover in a rocket ship and I'd blast it into the fucking sun because that guy sucks. But thank you for the question, Dean. Appreciate it, brother. One final question from Mr. Dan Combs again. This is a basketball question. He wants to know via our Facebook page, if the Cavs are going to win a title this year, who needs to play better, Kyrie Irving or Kevin Love?
It's not a matter of who needs to play better. It's a matter of they need to play team ball. That first round against the Pistons, you saw a big three. You saw a big three, and you saw a strong supporting cast against a really good Pistons team. That Pistons team is no slouch as an 8 seed. They're not going anywhere. They're only going to get better in Detroit, especially with Van Gundy at the helm. But like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Jared, you've got Kyrie who led the team in scoring in that first round. LeBron's going to get his, and Love's back to his old self, averaging a double-double, 18 and 12 every night. The key is to stay healthy, and the key is to play team ball, because if they want a legitimate chance to take out the Warriors, they're going to have to play as one cohesive group, and that includes the starters and that includes the bench. You can't have the nights that J.R. Smith goes out there and goes 0 for 10 from the field. You got Tyronn Lue's got to get these guys to buy into playing team ball. What they did in the first round was phenomenal, and they got to keep that up through the latter rounds in the draft.
I agree.
Or not the draft, the playoffs, my bad.
I completely agree. The Pistons, the first series, Pistons suck. They're okay, but the Pistons wouldn't even make the playoffs in the West. I mean, the Cavs are going to run through the East, so they have to. Obviously they can't let up on any of these teams. Some teams could possibly scare them. But like I said earlier, they need all three guys to play well. LeBron's going to get his, so you don't really got to worry about LeBron. If the other two aren't doing anything, LeBron's going to put the team on his back. But LeBron's always going to get his. He needs Kyrie to play well, which he has. Kyrie's the scorer. They need to get Kyrie the ball and let him go to work. That's his thing. And they need Kev Love to hit big buckets for them and dominate the glass. You can't give up second chance points. And he did a fantastic job against Andre Drummond, who's one of the best rebounders in the NBA. So that's what the Cavs need. They need the big three to show up. I think if those three show up, they have a chance to win it all this year. And whether it's against Golden State without Steph Curry or with Steph Curry, I still think Golden State gets to the finals regardless. But still, they're going to have a hard matchup against whoever comes out of the West. It's going to be the Spurs or it's going to be the Warriors. So they need to play perfectly against those teams. The Cavs are good and they can win it all, but they need the big three to show up. But thank you for the question, Dan, and thank you everybody who sent in questions. We love answering you guys' questions, so send them in next week for OSR Mailbag. But that's the show. We usually end each show with our bold prediction for this upcoming week of sports. Let's hear your bold prediction, brother.
Just a couple segments ago, Jared and I ran through our mock drafts for you for the Bengals and the Browns. My bold prediction is that the Browns are going to be making deals all throughout the draft, and none of my picks are going to come true, and I'm going to look like a complete idiot on next week's show.
Yeah, we probably both will. My bold prediction is the Bengals will actually trade down in the first round. I think they'll acquire a pick, and they'll still get someone that they like, a wide receiver with that first pick in the first round. And I also believe the Bengals will grade out when it's all said and done. They'll grade out with an A at the draft, which would be huge. They've done very well in the past, and I hope they continue to do well. But that's our show. That is episode 6 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show podcast. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. If you have not already, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. We are available on Stitcher and Google Play Music as well, so check us out on there. But please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. And also, while you're there, leave us a review. It will really help us out. We appreciate it. Thank you to everybody. If you have not already, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Ohio Sports Radio. Like our page on Facebook, Ohio Sports Radio on Facebook. And check out our website, ohsportsradio.com, updating it daily with new stuff. Thank you, guys. Ian, you got anything to add, brother?
Go Reds, go Browns. We bark together.
That's right. Go Reds, and hopefully the Bengals do well in the draft. But that's it. Thank you, guys. We appreciate the questions, and we love all you guys. Thank you for all that you do for us and continue to help us with our show. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. We will see you guys on the other side with episode number 7 of the Ohio Sports Radio Show. Rest in peace, Prince.